Welcome to DriverD-Trains. Thanks for stopping by. I'm your host, Driver D. Our conductor and brakeman, Scratchy-C, is going on a summer holiday. In my last two videos, we looked at how to assemble and configure two different versions of the WiTController to control our trains. In this video, we'll take a totally different approach and spend an afternoon vibe coding a throttle for DCC-EX you can download from my GitHub page that works on a Mac, Windows, a smartphone, or tablet. Be sure to check this video's description for links to my other videos, as well as the various websites and products I mention here. Also, if you are enjoying the videos, please leave a comment and hit the like button. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Traffic is light this time of year, but we've still got freight to move, so let's get started. Vibe code a throttle for DCC-EX. Here are all our waybills for today. First we'll ask, why make a throttle app? Then we'll discuss some of the new AI coding tools we can use to build one. After that, we'll look at how to download and install the DriverD-Throttle for DCC-EX on a Mac or Windows PC. Finally, we'll look at how to use the DriverD-Throttle on a smartphone or tablet. And of course, we'll run some trains. We've assembled our consist, so let's get this freight rolling. Vibe code a throttle for DCC-EX. Part 1. The Inspiration. Some model railroaders like to paint static grass. Others like to figure out new ways to control their trains. The wonderful thing about the model railroad hobby is that it includes both. While I may have spoken about static grass in my first video, think dirt, maybe some static grass, most of my videos since then have focused on different ways that we can control our trains. We have looked both at some of the different software throttle apps that are available, as well as a variety of different types of hardware controllers, including some rather unconventional options. See my playlist on hardware and software controllers for DCC-EX if you'd like to revisit some of those older videos.
Hey guys, George at Soundtracks here. This week we're going to take another step in our deep dive using the new Blue Nami app.
Recently, while watching George from Soundtracks demonstrate the Blue Nami app, I began to wonder if I could make something similar that I could use with DCC-EX. I thought about the other throttle apps that I have used, such as WiTHrottle and Engine Driver, and the new Throttle Card app. I thought about JMRI throttles and the JMRI web server. And I thought back to the EX Web Throttle app that I discussed 3 years ago in my video number 4B, Installing and Configuring DCC-EX. And I wondered if I could use some modern free AI tools to vibe code a mashup of my favorite bits from all of those apps and make it available on GitHub for others to use. And so, like some assembled creature zapped into life by a bolt of AI lightning, the DriverD-Throttle for DCC-EX was born. All aboard! Ha 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 ha! Part 2. Vibe coding a throttle for DCC-EX. Before we dive into the details of the Throttle app, let's look briefly at how I made it. Perhaps you will be inspired to try vibe coding an app of your own. All the tools I used to create the DriverD-Throttle for DCC-EX were free of charge to use. The primary tool I used was Google AI Studio, which I used for free with my Google account. Google owns YouTube, so if you're watching this video, you probably have a Google account too. Google AI Studio runs in a web browser and doesn't require any additional software, so it's very easy to use. I'll include a link to the AI Studio apps page in this video's description. For best results, we will want to use Google Chrome or another Chrome-based browser. After we go to the AI Studio webpage, we can click the Apps button to see our prior work, or the New App button to start a new app. Google AI Studio includes several different versions of Google's AI models. When we create an app or select an app to work on, we can select which of Google's AI models we want to use. When we run out of free credits on one model, we can switch to another. Once we start vibe coding an app, we will see the chat pane on the left-hand side of the window and the preview pane on the right. The preview pane allows us to run our app right in the browser. We can also place the preview pane into full screen mode. If we click the Code button, a code editor will appear in place of the preview pane, and we can see all the files and code that are part of our app. This is not just any static display. We can add and delete files and folders, upload zip files, and make edits right in the code. This can come in handy as we dive into the weeds of our app. Google AI Studio incorporates a number of popular open-source web tools and technologies to build its apps. I won't go into all the details here, but I'll post a link to some additional information for those who are interested in building their own apps. When we are ready, we can export our app to run locally on our computer or compile it into an app that we can share and distribute. Because our app is based on web technologies, we can also connect to and use it from our smartphone or tablet as long as we are on the same local network. Vibe coding can be addictive in the same way that model railroading can be addictive, and it will likewise make you frequently question your life choices. The AI tools don't always get it right, but when they do, they can give us 90% of what we need to make it work in a matter of seconds. Figuring out the remaining 10% may take a few minutes, or a few days, or may never happen at all. Tell me, do you feel lucky, punk? It definitely helps to have some understanding of how modern computer software is assembled, and in several instances I had to provide the AI the correct syntax for certain DCC-EX commands as it was prone to hallucination. I intentionally chose to use the DCC-EX native protocol for the app rather than the WiTController protocol because it is better documented, and I want to be able to add some features in the future that WiTController does not support. So I spent an afternoon vibe coding a throttle for DCC-EX. Then I spent the next month perfecting it, and another month creating an interactive guided tour for new users. Finally, I created a GitHub account where you can download the app and try it out for yourself. You can download the completed app as well as all the source code, which you can modify. Note that because I have not registered the app with Apple or Microsoft, you will need to explicitly give your computer permission to run it. I'll include a link to the GitHub page and all the instructions for installing the app on your Mac or Windows PC in this video's description. Also, while the app requires a computer to do the background work, we can use the app on our smartphone or tablet as long as we are connected to the same Wi-Fi network as the computer and our DCC-EX command station. We'll look at that further later in the video. So without further ado, here is the DriverD-Throttle for DCC-EX. Part 3. Introducing the DriverD-Throttle for DCC-EX. Let's start by downloading and installing the DriverD-Throttle for DCC-EX. Then we'll look at how to use it. We'll go to the DriverDTrains GitHub page and download the app. We'll find the app on the Releases page. There are two versions, one for Mac and one for Windows. Again, I'll include a link to the GitHub page and all the instructions for installing the app on your Mac or Windows PC in this video's description. On Windows, we will find the zip file we downloaded in our Downloads folder. We'll double-click to open the zip file and copy the DriverD-Throttle setup.exe file to our desktop. We'll double-click the setup.exe file to install the DriverD-Throttle for DCC-EX. Windows Defender will display a message that it prevented an unrecognized app from starting, so we need to tell it that we want to install the throttle app anyway. To do this, we click More Info and then Run Anyway. The installer will proceed to install the app in our User App Data folder and will create a shortcut on our desktop. We can double-click on the shortcut to launch the DriverD-Throttle for DCC-EX. On the Mac, we can find and open the DMG file we downloaded in our Downloads folder. Then we can drag the DriverD-Throttle app into our Applications folder or wherever is most convenient. We now need to give our Mac permission to run the app. We only need to do this once. When we first try to open the app on our Mac, we will get a message that the app is damaged and cannot be opened. This is the Mac gatekeeper at work. We'll click Cancel. On some older versions of Mac OS, we can control-click or right-click on the app and choose Open from the drop-down menu to bypass Mac Gatekeeper. However, Apple has removed that option in recent updates and newer versions of Mac OS. On some newer versions of Mac OS, we can open System Settings from the Apple menu, select Privacy and Security, and scroll down to the bottom to the Security section. There may be a message that our app was blocked and a button to allow us to open it anyway. If so, we can click the button to open the app the first time. We only need to do this once. After this, we can open the app normally anytime we want. However, not all versions of Mac OS include this option. In that case, we will need to use the Mac terminal to unlock the app. Press Command Space to open Spotlight and then type Terminal and press Return. In Terminal, we will type XATTR_-C and then drag the icon for the throttle app into the terminal window. We can then press Return and quit Terminal. Now we can open the app normally. When we first download and open the app, it will open with the default settings, and the locomotive roster will have a few generic locomotives in it. We'll learn how to configure the throttle and add locomotives to our roster and then use it to control our trains. After we look at the throttle app on our computer, we'll learn how to use it on our smartphone or tablet. In order to learn about all the features of the DriverD-Throttle for DCC-EX, the app includes both an interactive self-guided tour and an illustrated user guide. We can find both of these helpful tools by clicking on the button near the upper right corner of the app window that has an artist's paint palette icon. This opens the Display Settings control panel. Near the bottom, we will see buttons to start the self-guided tour or open the user guide. We can open the user guide either in the app or as a web page in a browser tab, which is convenient because we can make it a bit larger in the browser tab than we can in the app. For now, we'll start by clicking the button to begin the self-guided tour. When we start the self-guided tour, we will be taken to the guided tour welcome screen. Here we can visit the various stops along the guided tour and look at all the different parts of the throttle by clicking on the tour stop titles. For this video, we'll hit a few of the highlights, but we'll go through the entire tour in a follow-up companion video. The DriverD-Throttle for DCC-EX consists of 5 primary control panels: the header panel, the track power panel, the loco address panel, the throttle control panel, and the loco functions panel. The first thing we'll want to do is decide how to connect to our DCC-EX command station. We can connect via a USB serial cable or over Wi-Fi. When connecting over Wi-Fi, we'll need to enter our DCC-EX command station's IP address and port number in the boxes provided. We can typically find this information on the command station's LCD or OLED display. We'll also need to make sure our computer and DCC-EX command station are on the same Wi-Fi network. Then we can click Connect to DCC-EX. Once we've connected to the command station, we can turn on the track power using the power button in the track power panel. We can then click in the address box in the loco address panel and type in the DCC address of the locomotive we want to control. We can also save this locomotive as a preset by clicking the gear icon in the loco address panel to enter Edit mode. We can then enter the locomotive's road name and DCC address into one of the preset boxes. If we like, we can also upload an image for that locomotive, or choose a generic steam or diesel icon. We can also find buttons here to export and import throttle configuration files, which store all our user custom settings and locomotive rosters. There are also tools that let us manage our roster and import locomotives from DCC-EX. We'll click the gear icon again to exit the edit mode. Now we can select a locomotive to control by clicking on its preset button. When we press the button again, the locomotive changes direction. We can also configure and run locomotive consists by pressing the Consist Setup button. Once we select a locomotive to run, we can control the locomotive with the throttle control panel. We can drag the throttle slider, press the speed plus and minus buttons, and speed presets, or use a mouse scroll wheel and keyboard shortcuts to control our locomotive. We can also click the gear icon in the throttle control panel to customize a variety of throttle settings. We can activate our locomotive's DCC decoder functions in the Loco Functions panel. We press the gear icon in the Loco Functions panel to configure the function preset buttons, as well as copy the function presets from one locomotive roster entry to another. We can also control turnouts and routes from the Loco Functions panel. Finally, we can save our settings in the User Custom Settings panel, which we can access from the Display Settings panel by clicking the Paint Palette icon in the header panel. We'll long press on one of the 8 memory presets to save our settings. We can also change the size and appearance of the DriverD-Throttle in the Display Settings panel. We've barely scratched the surface of some of the app's features, so be sure to take the guided tour and check back for the companion video where we'll take the tour together. All aboard! Part 4. Using the DriverD-Throttle on a smartphone or tablet. In addition to using the DriverD-Throttle for DCC-EX on our computer, we can also use it on our smartphone or tablet, including both iOS and Android devices. We don't actually install and run the app on our mobile devices. Rather, we run the app on our computer and then access the app and our DCC-EX command station from our mobile devices over our local Wi-Fi network. This does mean, however, that our mobile device, computer, and DCC-EX command station all need to be on the same local Wi-Fi network. Also note that I have only tested using the app with the command station in Wi-Fi station mode on the local Wi-Fi network. I have not tested the app in access point mode. To open the app on our mobile device, we first make sure the app is running on our computer and that our mobile device is on the same Wi-Fi network. The Throttle app on our computer does not need to be connected to our DCC-EX command station. The first time we run the DriverD-Throttle for DCC-EX on our phone or tablet, we need to configure its Wi-Fi connection settings and save it on our device as a bookmark or web app. After that, we can just open the throttle like any other app. So the first time we want to run the app, we will start by opening a web browser on our mobile device. Safari works fine on iOS, and Chrome works on both iOS and Android. Then, in the browser address bar, we enter http:// followed by the local IP address and port number 3000 for our computer, which we can find displayed in the app in the upper left corner of the header panel, just under the app name. Once the app loads in our browser, we can save it on our device as a web app or bookmark. On iOS, we will click the Share icon with the up arrow, then scroll down in the menu until we see Add to Home Screen. We want to make sure the Open as Web App toggle is on, Then we can press Add to add a bookmark to our device's home screen. On Android, we click the three dots menu on the right end of the menu bar and select Add to Home Screen. We can then edit the name of the bookmark if we like and click Add. Then Add to Home Screen again. We can now close our browser and access the DriverD-Throttle app in a dedicated window or browser tab on Android directly from the bookmark on our home screen. We still need to enter our DCC-EX command station's Wi-Fi information into the app the first time, so we will select Wi-Fi from the connection options, then enter the IP address and port number for our DCC-EX command station in the box in the header panel. We can usually find these on the command station's LCD or OLED display. Then we can connect to the command station and start using our throttle. Depending on whether we are using the app on a smartphone or tablet, we can select the compact, ultra, or mobile layout to see which we prefer. We can then use the custom settings tools we saw during the tour to configure the throttle just the way we like. Finally, for those who are interested in downloading the source code, we can also run the throttle back end from the terminal or PowerShell and not have the throttle itself open on our computer. We can then access it from our mobile devices exactly the same as before. Again, I will provide a link to all the instructions on how to do that in this video's description. Part 5. Let's run some trains. Now that we've installed and configured the DriverD-Throttle for DCC-EX on our devices, let's go run some trains. We can control single locomotives, run consists, set turnouts and routes, and trigger automations. We can add locomotives to our roster, configure their function settings, and add images to the throttle. And we can use multiple devices at a time, each running the throttle app and controlling as many locomotives as we like. Be sure to watch this video's companion video where we take a detailed tour of the DriverD-Throttle for DCC-EX and all its features. All aboard! What's next? Decoder programming with the DriverD-Throttle for DCC-EX. In my next video, we'll add the ability to program our locomotive decoders to the DriverD-Throttle for DCC-EX. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any upcoming videos, and check this video's description for links to my other videos, including my video series on assembling a DCC-EX command station and my series on using JMRI's Decoder Pro app to control our trains. It's been a slow day and time seemed to stand still, but we finally made all our deliveries and are ready to head back to the yard. Let's see if we can tie up this hog before sunset. Until then, thanks for watching. Well, Scratchy, where are you going next on your summer holiday? Bali? All aboard!